Most of the issues drummers are experiencing, like back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, wrist pain, or what have you, is caused by the way they set up their drum set. I mean, think about it. We are all different. Different overall height, different length of our arms, forearms, legs, the sticks we are using, where we hold the sticks. All those things play into how you should set up your drum set. So in this video I want to explain to you a few basic guidelines that you can follow to set this instrument up ergonomically to fit your body. So probably by now you can understand that it's not a very good idea to just copy someone else's setup or to set the drums up for looks only. I mean, of course there are some guys who do that and it's totally fine. They play like big arena rock shows and it's all about the looks, I get that. But I encourage you to at least try to set the drum set up ergonomically. Your body will thank you, believe me. So let's get started. The first thing you need is your throne and a bass drum pedal. Now it all starts with the height of your throne. You want to make sure that when you sit on the throne and your foot is resting on the pedal, that your thighs are angled slightly downwards. So when you lift your heel to execute a stroke on the bass drum, your thighs come up to a 90-degree angle to your upper body. It's important to notice that I'm talking about heel up technique only in this video, because that's what I use. If you're playing heel down, you might want to adjust your throne height, because you won't do that movement at all. So you might as well can lower your seat so that your thighs are parallel to the ground when you're in resting position. Regarding the bass drum pedal's distance away from you, you kinda have to find the specific sweet spot of your bass drum pedal. For me, it's when I put my toes right above where it says Iron Cobra. That's the sweet spot for me with my bass drum pedal. So once you've found that spot, you want to make sure that your chin bones are perpendicular to the ground. Then with the HiHat pedal it's the same thing basically. Personally, I don't look for a sweet spot in the HiHat pedal because I don't do that much with that pedal, but again, perpendicular to the ground. And as you can tell, the pedals are at different distances away from me. So I don't set them up symmetrically. Because with the HiHat pedal, as you can see, my heel lines up with the back of the foot plate, but with the bass drum pedal, my heel is even behind the end of the foot plate. So the reason why you want to set the pedals up that way is because ergonomically it makes the most sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense to lift your leg any higher than 90 degree, because as soon as you do that, you need a whole other large muscle group that you don't need when you just lift it up to 90 degree. Same thing for the chin bones being perpendicular to the ground. I mean, just try playing like this. You will very soon notice that it's a lot harder to play like this than it is to play like this. Regarding the angles of the bass drum pedal and the HiHat pedal, what I like to do is to stand up and sit down and stand up and sit down and walk away and come back and sit down, and without thinking where I put my feet, I look down and see if they are aligned with the pedals. And if they are not, I will adjust the pedals, repeat the process, look again and repeat that process basically until they perfectly match. Moving on to the snare drum, grab your sticks, place the snare drum roughly in front of you, hold the sticks like you would do when you play the drums, and then just relax your arms, relax your shoulders, sit up straight, and again, without thinking too much about it, raise your forearms, only your forearms, elbows are still at your side, and see where the tips of the sticks make contact with the head. And it should be pretty much exactly in the middle of the drum. Okay, and if that's not the case, just adjust the distance away from you and repeat the process. Now, the reason why you should be able to hit the center of your snare drum in your home position without even thinking of it is the snare drum sounds very different when you're playing it off center. So as you can tell, just by moving out of the center by 1 or 2 inches, you get a ton more overtones out of the snare, which you probably don't want, especially when recording. Talking about the height of the snare drum, it's pretty much the exact same concept as we've discussed earlier with your legs. So once the sticks make contact with the head, your forearms should be slangled. Your forearms should be angled slightly downwards. That way, again, you're utilizing a good amount of gravity in your strokes. Because now when you lift your hand and execute a stroke, you have gravity from here downwards, so you don't have to force everything into the head as you would if your snare drum would be at this height. Moving on to the height of the hi-hat cymbals. We've already discussed the distance away from us, and with the height it's kinda personal preference, but still I like to have all options available to me. And what I mean by that is I like to play the hi-hat with the tip and with the shoulder of the stick. And I won't be able to do that if the hi-hat was up here, and down here it feels just awkward to me. What you should do next is, we've set up the bass drum, the snare drum, and now the hi-hat. Just play a little groove and see how it feels. Okay, the next thing I like to set up is the floor tom. And the way I like to do that is by playing my snare drum and then just turning my torso to the right, and without even moving my arms, my sticks should land pretty much in the middle of the floor tom. Just like that. I'm not moving my arms at all, I'm just turning my torso, and that's it. Regarding the height of the floor tom, I would set it to the exact same height that you set your snare drum to. That way it's just easier to get from one to another. And as far as the angles go, I like them both flat. And at this point again, just play a little bit and see how it feels. To the main crash cymbal. Pretty straight ahead, don't go too high, don't go too low, so that you don't hit it like this or like this, but at a slight angle and with the shoulder of your sticks. Also keep it in reach so that you don't have to fully extend your arm to play it. Now as you can see, all I have to do is move my elbow forward a little bit and I'm already in a good position to play that cymbal. Another thing I personally like to do, it's not a necessity, but I like to do it, and that's I like to position my cymbal in a way that when I strike it, my stick points exactly through the center of the cymbal. And of course, the same rules apply to the second and the third cymbal. And now again, just play a little bit. One thing I forgot to mention is make sure you can hit your main crash as comfortably with your left hand as you can do with your right hand. Okay, cool. The only two things left are the rec tom and the right cymbal. And with the rec tom you want to have it as closely in as possible, so right before it makes contact with the snare drum, and you want to again have it angled slightly. The reason we want to do that is this. Check this out. I'm just moving my hand out without thinking of it, just moving my hand forward, and you can see it creates this angle of the drumstick, and you want to match the angle of your rec tom to that angle of the stick, because that way it creates the same playing position as we already have created with the snare drum and the floor tom. The sticks are always parallel to the drum head, just like this. And that's why you want to angle your rec tom. It just creates the most natural feeling when playing. Okay, last but not least, the right cymbal. This is now the time where your setup may be different than mine, because I only have one rec tom, you may have 2 or 3, so you obviously can't play the right cymbal in this exact position because your second rec tom would be here. So what you could do is either lift the right cymbal up and overlap it with one of the rec toms, or you could move it down and out and play it right beside the floor tom. Okay, so right here or right here. And of course, if you have more than one rec tom, the same rules apply. So what I like to do with the right cymbal is keep it as closely in as possible, but not too much so that it gets in the way when I'm moving from the rec tom to the floor tom, but close enough still so that I can play it comfortably pretty much in the middle of the cymbal. So check that out. When I'm playing my snare drum and move to the right cymbal, I barely move my elbow and that's it. Same for the bell. I don't have to do much, just with the rec tom I just have to move my elbow out a little bit, but it's not fully extended. Okay? And as far as the angle goes, I don't like to angle it as much as the rec tom because I like to crash the right from time to time, and that's just easier if it's not that much angled. And there you have it. That's how I set up my drum set. And now again, I would say play a little bit. We have set up everything we have. And yeah, just play a little bit and see how it feels.